All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday to you. I pray you had a wonderful weekend as always. It was a lovely weekend, even though it was hot. I'd rather deal with a little heat than with a whole lot of cold, especially this time of year. I would just say last evening was just wonderful. Was able to sit on the back porch with my lovely queen and have dinner with her. Just a really great time. I really do appreciate you all coming in and joining again for another great conversation. Um, hey, Mom, nice to see you. Hey, Tony, nice to see you as well. And I know that some of you are still logging on, but I truly appreciate as we move into this third year of Keep It Real conversation with episode one on one. We do have a wonderful guest with us tonight that I'll be introducing to you momentarily. Excuse me. Um, but before I go any further, let me bring in my lovely co-host, probably the prettiest co-host there ever has been, my queen, Miss Keep It Real herself, Felicia Renee. Hey, baby.
Hey, baby, Mrs. Keep It Real.
Mrs. Keep It Real. I'm
There's a
sorry.
Mrs. Keep It Real.
Mrs. Keep It Real.
This the last. This is my last time co-hosting with you for the month of May.
I'm gonna say I don't know if you sound excited to be done with it, or are you sad to be done with it.
So I'm gonna be honest. I wanted to do this to support you. Support my man and all. He wanted to have a co-host. I was like, I'm gonna do this. But as soon as I told you I was gonna do it, I was like, what did I get myself into? Because me and this live thing, I don't like it. I don't like it. So while I'm happy to support you, I made it through. I made it through. Well, I almost made it through. We got one more show, but I made it through. And you make this look easy. You
You
do. I
say it
say
every
it
week.
every time. You
Yeah.
make this look easy. It's not easy. The prep work and everything, and something between you and us has gone wrong in the house every single show. I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm not speaking that now. As a matter of fact, this is going to go smoothly. The cat went crazy one episode. I forgot to plug up my laptop one episode. It started to die. I can't remember what the other one was, but today is going smoothly, and it's going to be a great show. And congratulations on now episode 101.
Oh, thank you so much. I do truly appreciate your love and support, and I really appreciated you being here. I do hope that you'll come back and do it again with me, though.
Congratulations on episode 101.
Okay, enough said. Um, yeah, and honestly, we already had the hiccup because I started the wrong video at the very beginning, and that's why I probably felt like it was a hiccup at the very beginning. So hopefully that'll be the only hiccup for today, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're gonna push through and have a great conversation regardless. Um, So, this weekend, again, unfortunately, I just heard earlier today, I believe I was watching the news, like 4:30 news or something like that. There was more shootings this weekend. This past Sunday, I believe it was five, just on Sunday alone. Um, and, we've talked about it before. It's a growing concern that I have. I know it's a growing concern that you have. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about it, or we talked about it last week as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this being Mental Awareness Month, we both thought that we could talk about those things as well, not just about violence, but how does that maybe, play into the whole violence that's going on nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had mental violence, mental awareness, or those who are in that field on the show before. Um, and we actually invited this gentleman that we're going to have on tonight on, but he was not able to clear his schedule at that point. But so happy that he's able to join us tonight. Um,
Yay.
Let me just tell you a little bit about Lewis Williams III. He is an educator, a minister of the gospel, mental health advocate, and community leader with a heart for people and a unique perspective. Lewis has been able to join his own journey with mental health with his lifelong goals of providing resources to his community to help others truly live a life that is mentally, spiritually, and emotionally well. So, without further ado, please let me introduce to you. Some of you already know him, Lewis Williams III.
Hello.
Minister Lou.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey,
I'm glad to join.
welcome.
So
Thank
happy to have you. thank you for joining. And that's the last time. I don't know if you've seen many of the broadcasts, but we don't go by title, so that's the only time you're gonna hear Minister Lou.
That's
From
fine.
now on, it's gonna be Lewis.
I don't hear today.
we don't really do titles. Not that we try to be disrespectful or anything, but we wanted to feel like it's like an everyday conversation, and we try to keep it as real as possible as well. So tell us a little bit more about what you do. Tell us a little bit more about your background. All right.
Okay.
And I really would like to know, or I know the audience. I believe I know some of the aspects about your own little journey, but I think some of the audience would like to know a little bit more about your journey as well.
Okay. Certainly. As you said earlier, I'm an educator and a minister of the gospel and a bunch of other things. I actually am an elementary school teacher. I teach 5th grade math and science. And I'm really a career change. This is my first year in the classroom. Previously, I was doing some other things, but I've always had a passion for people. And one of my long-term goals since I was in college was to eventually open a nonprofit that bridged the gap between what kids are getting at school and what they're getting at home. When we were younger, or when I was younger, we had like life skills. Well, I'm sure you had life skills and such, and like home ec and all that kind of stuff. And there were things that were not necessarily academic that we learned in school to help us to, survive as adults, as, contributing members of society. And in a lot of places, those classes and those programs have been cut for different reasons, budgets or just climate, culture, or what have you. But also at home, a lot of those things aren't being taught anymore either, just because of the changing culture of, our world right now and things that have been occurring as far as, absent parents or just the things that are happening in the world can kind of distracted a lot of us from being able to offer those things to our children. And so I wanted to have a safe place where, you can learn how to tie a tie, but you also will have mentoring services and also have tutoring services and things like that. And I've had this big dream for so long about offering those services, but didn't know where to start. And what's crazy is, while I've always had these dreams and I've always been involved at my church in various places, I've served on mostly every ministry that our church has to offer at some point in my life. But I never really found a place where I felt like I could contribute to like the whole person. And I wasn't, as much as I talked about it, I wasn't addressing my own mental wellness and journey. I kind of felt like I had it all together.
Okay.
Around 2012 was when I first decided to start like looking into my own mental health and making sure that I was well myself. And for many years, since I was in high school, I have dealt with severe depression and anxiety, but didn't realize that's what it was. Wasn't able to call it that because I never really talked to someone to kind of address where I am and what was going on in my life, why I felt the way that I felt. And being a believer, being someone who was raised in church and has had a relationship with God since a very young age, I was one of those people who felt like it was a lack of faith in God for me to reach out to someone externally outside of my church to say, hey, I'm kind of struggling. I need some help. I need to talk through some things with someone and just get back to center. And honestly, it wasn't until 2018, which was now 4 years ago, when I joined my fraternity. I'm Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm an Alpha. And one of my fraternity brothers, his wife owns a private practice, a counseling center. And I was talking to her about, this journey and talking about how I'd gone to Christian counseling before, but it wasn't really like, they didn't focus on the clinical side. I was a place where it was we just prayed. That's what we did. I went, every Monday for a long time. And when we went, we just, I talked about what was wrong. We prayed about what was wrong. We said it's going to be better next week, and came back and did it again and paid copay after copay after copay. Wow. And it wasn't until I started going to a therapist that I really started to peel back the layers and kind of figure out what made me tick and why I was so passionate about helping other people live a well life, but was going through all this turmoil inside, self-image issues, or always feeling like I wasn't good enough, or I used to be a huge pessimist. Like if you need someone to come into your organization and tell you what's wrong with it, I was good at that because I could always find the problem, but was never really solution oriented. So I started going to counseling. I'm going to therapy myself, and just kind of talking through different things, like really just rambling. For a while, I just went and just rambled and just talked about anything that came to my head, and was able to kind of separate those thoughts and then address them one at a time. And in doing that, I got to know so much more about myself, and I came to understand, why I think the way I think, or how to just adjust my thought processes for different things. And so, during the pandemic, when we were right in the midst of the shutdown, one thing that we did at Mount Pleasant at our church was we started a behavioral health Facebook Live series, where we knew that in-house we had lots of mental health professionals and lots of resources that we weren't really tapping into. And we knew that we know that there's a stigma specifically in the Black community, in the Black church community, regarding mental health and regarding seeking assistance outside of your church body for something that you can't see, something that's not necessarily tangible, but really has lasting effects just as much as a heart attack will have on your health. And when I heard that we were starting that, I asked, because I am not a licensed mental health professional myself. Yes, I work in education. Yes, I've done lots of volunteer work for years. I've been a mentor. I work with our battalion program through my organization and everything. But we had a ton of mental health professionals, and I wanted to find a way where I could be a part of that. And I was asked to host it. So for the past several months now, I've been hosting a Facebook Live show with Mount Pleasant Church and Ministries that we call Behavioral Health. And each month we tackle a different topic regarding our wellness. We want to cater to the whole person, not just to your spiritual side, what we get when we're in service hearing the sermon, but also every other part of you, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. There are lots of parts to who we are. And we want to address those things from not just a spiritual perspective, but also from a clinical perspective. So that's really, now at this point, it's been going on, we're on our second season. I am really able to extend the resources that I've been given through my own journey with mental health, as well as through the Behavioral Health Live and my own just networking, as I've been getting to know a lot more people and learning more about how the brain works and triggers and different things about emotional wellness. Being able to take those resources and then share them with my community for people who may not have access to them, for people who may not see necessity for it, and just kind of starting the conversation about how we can be well in every area of our lives.
That's good. That's good. And you said a lot there. And really, I was, as you were speaking, I was looking at your shirt, and your shirt says it all. Jesus plus therapy. Because I think oftentimes people will think about, well, if I got Jesus, that's all I need.
Right.
And you mentioned, Monday after Monday, copay after copay, prayer. And certainly we're not speaking against prayer.
Right.
But sometimes you need something a little more, I don't want to say spiritual, but you need something that's tangible, that's right here on earth, that you can actually grab hold of. And there's something clinical to it. The behavioral health side of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you wouldn't expect to heal yourself if you were having a physical ailment and you would see a doctor. And it's, of course, that doesn't mean that you don't trust or have faith in Jesus. If you would see a medical doctor, why wouldn't you see someone for any type of mental problems, anxiety, whatever it is? Why wouldn't you go and get treatment for it? It's the same thing. And there's been a stigma with that in the church community, in the Black community. I mean, there's just a stigma when it comes to that. And we have to break that. We have to break that stronghold that you don't need therapy. That's not healthy. That's not healthy.
Right.
Yeah. So,
That's why I wore it. I wanted to make sure I wore this specifically for this conversation, because we need both.
Right.
In order to be balanced, we need Jesus and therapy. And for me, it wasn't until I brought those two things together that I really felt like I started to live my best life, if you will, to really be well. I talked a bit about how I dealt with depression and anxiety from a younger age and couldn't really name what it was, but also like with suicidal ideations and such. There was a time for me, starting in high school specifically, where I just really felt like I'd be better off just not here. And I never actually had any suicide attempts, but it was a constant thing for me, like at night, especially at night when I was going to bed, thinking about
Yeah.
how like so much was wrong, and I felt like the only way out was to not be here. And to join that with the fact that I'm a believer and knowing that when I do die, that I'm gonna go to see Jesus, I had this twisted mindset about it. Like, well, I'm not saying that I want to end my own life, but if it were to end, like I'd be okay with it.
Right.
It was
Right.
I was having these conversations with myself and was really getting nowhere, just spiraling constantly, and never really telling anyone what was really going on, what I was really feeling. And I remember my dad, who he passed away in 2015, but I remember when I was in high school and I would just be sad. I was just often sad and I could never explain why. And it broke his heart. And I remember him like crying and saying something like he just didn't know how to help me, but it broke his heart to see me so down all the time.
Right.
And I think that kind of is one of the things that kind of made me start thinking about, okay, let's talk to somebody. Let's figure something out. But I still waited. I'm thinking that things got better because my circumstances were better, that my mindset was going to change. And while it took a long time, it wasn't until after he passed for me to really, delve into therapy, specifically because of his passing. That's really what drove me there. But that knowing that someone cared enough, like I know that my family loves me. We have a great relationship. We talk about pretty much everything. And even with that, I would try to talk to them about it, but I didn't know what to say because I didn't know why. I was just not feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate you being so transparent.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
in all honesty, it's been times I've had that same thought, and I'm not one to be depressed. I mean, I think everybody deals with depression from time to time. For me, it's usually short lived, and I thank the Lord for that because I just don't like that feeling. But
Right.
I know for others, it can be a real challenge to pull themselves out of that, and they don't even know how to get out of that. So for you to be so transparent in what you're saying. And what I was going to say was, I've had that same thought. I'm saved. If I weren't here, if something were to happen, I'd be good.
Mhm.
Because I know I'd be with Jesus. But that's not. Yes, we should be happy to have that hope where we know where we're going to go at the end. But
Right.
Christ has us here for a reason, and while we're here, we're to live, and we're to be happy while we're living, right? And He
Right.
wants that for us. He doesn't want us to, um, even when we're going through trials and tribulations, He doesn't want us to be down and out all the time. Sure, things happen, that make you feel that way from time to time, but that's not how He wants us to go through life, you
Right.
know. And yes, He's always there. He's a listening ear. He'll always hear our prayers and things like that. But that's why I think He also stresses relationships so much. That's why He wants us to have relationship with others. That's why He wants us to seek out doctors and therapists and things like that, so that we know we're not walking this life alone. And just hearing you say that you have those thoughts, the same thoughts I've had, I don't know if Felicia's ever had them or not. I know that there's others out there who have had those same thoughts, and they may be thinking, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be thinking this way. But in all honesty, we all go through it.
Right.
We all have different thoughts at different times that may not always seem super spiritual. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you may not remember, Mark, but I remember having real bad depression after Savannah was born. It was,
I remember.
you remember? I
Hmm.
mean, it was really bad. I had this beautiful baby and I was sad, crying. That was so bad that I actually did go to the doctor and I got medication because I was scared about how depressed I was with this new child who was beautiful and healthy. And so sometimes there's, and we know, after having a baby, sometimes that happens. But
The
Sometimes
postpartum
it's a
depression.
right. But I was going to say sometimes it's a medical reason and sometimes it's life circumstances because I've certainly had my share of depression because of circumstances that have happened. Of course, you mentioned death, so certainly that can put anybody into depression, and myself included. And sometimes it's just other circumstances. Maybe, something's not going on. For some people, it could be finances, it could be not being employed right now during the pandemic. It could be so many things.
Right.
But I had to realize that some things I could not handle myself. And so I too have been to counseling, and I realized I could not do it myself. And there's no harm in that. There's no shame in that. My family supported me, my circle supported me in that. And a couple of times, Mark even said, I think, now's the time you need to talk to somebody because he'll tell you, and he can see it before I can, honestly. Okay, now it's time to talk to somebody. So there's no shame in getting therapy because of life circumstances. It doesn't mean that you don't trust God. It doesn't mean that, and I'm going to say this, sometimes when we are depressed, we'll have someone who means well, but they say, well, God got you. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Sometimes that's not enough, and sometimes
quoted scriptures.
That quoting scriptures, I don't want to hear that. I need to hear, you mentioned triggers, and I'm going to be transparent right now. I have a real trigger that I am dealing with now. I was in a car accident in February where a 18-wheeler rear-ended me while I was sitting at a train track. I was the first car, and he didn't see me. He was trying to pull out on the street, and he rear-ended me and pushed the car toward the train as the train was coming. And of course, the train whistle blew. I was terrified, didn't know why the car was moving. I threw the car in park, ran out the car because he didn't see me. If I hadn't run out the car, he probably never would have saw me. But that train whistle, that's now a trigger for me. And Mark, and we live near a train track. So sometimes it's a trigger, sometimes it's not. I need help with that. I can't handle that kind of stuff by myself. And there's no shame in it. So, I guess my point is if you need help, whether it's because of the grief of someone passing, or you're dealing with the pandemic, or you're dealing with postpartum depression, just anything, get help. Don't deal with these thoughts that we're talking about, that you're better off, not being here. Now that's a lie from the pit of hell. And I will say that to anybody listening. You are important. You are loved. You are important, and you are needed. And get the help that you need. And there's no shame.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, actually, you touched on how some things are situational. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to talk to someone, not just when you're, in crisis, but regularly, just like we get a checkup on our physical body, get a checkup on where you are mentally as well. Because sometimes it is just situational, where things are going on, where you're going through a rough patch. Sometimes it may be something, like grief or postpartum. And then there are other things, medically or chemically, chemical imbalances that can cause you to be dealing with depressive thoughts and such as well. And so when you talk to someone who is trained in that particular field to accurately diagnose where you are, then you can develop a plan for how you can be well. For some people, it may be that a medication may be beneficial to you to add into your regimen to help you to be able to get through the day and such. For some people, it may be just different. Like we talk a lot about self-care tips and things that you can do yourself to help you to stay in a healthy place. But in order to find out what you need, oftentimes it will be much better, I will say, because everybody isn't going to go to therapy, but it's much better for you to talk to someone whose life's work and their expertise is in helping you to get the resources you need specifically tailored to you. And I did just mention how it's not necessarily something that's just for when you're in crisis. The checkup, even when things are good, that opens up the lines of communication for when things aren't so good. And also getting it's better to get the resources and the tools that you need when you don't need them than you do. Like, and when it's a blizzard outside, that's not the time to go get a shovel because you're already snowed in, you know, and it's a lot harder to get to the resources to help you to solve whatever the problem is. But if you know that the storm may be coming, you know, because everybody goes through storms, you're gonna go purchase a shovel and keep it in the closet or something, so that when those things do come, you're equipped to handle it. And that's how I look at therapy often. For those who feel like, you know, I don't need it, or I'm fine, or I can handle it. It's like, okay, maybe things may be great right now. Sometimes it's just good to be able to think through your thoughts with someone else who can help you sift through them and kind of, sometimes we say things not realize what we're saying, or someone who can help you to just think clearer. And that's what therapy does for me most is to kind of just sift through my thoughts and organize them better so that I can handle things better. For me, my mind is constantly going. It's constantly thinking about something. And like I said before, I tend to ramble, which I think I've been doing so far tonight.
You are not rambling.
You did.
When I have a thought, I like to fully express my thought. And sometimes that uses a lot of words. But I do internally too. Like when I'm thinking about something, I have to look at it from every single angle, think about every possibility. And sometimes those thoughts can become very overwhelming. So me, speaking to someone in therapy gave me tools to better even handle the way that I think, so that I can prioritize things better, so I can communicate things better, and so that I can handle them better. Because it's very easy to get overwhelmed when your mind is going a million miles a minute.
Yeah, it's like you have to get out of your own head. I believe that's for me. Maybe I'm speaking of myself. It's like I have to get out of my own head, and I have to talk to someone who helps me make sense of it. And you know what? Sometimes talking to someone, it helps me learn more about myself, because they can see things that I didn't see. And that's helpful. And then when they pointed out, well, Felicia, you know, maybe you did this because, you know, we talked about this part of your childhood. And if you relate the two, you can see why. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. So they can see things that we can't see because we're stuck in our own heads.
They can connect the dots from things that may have happened long ago, like you said, from childhood. There was one other thing that you said before that I kind of wanted to just briefly touch on, is those who are living with those who may be dealing with depression or whatever, anxiety, whatever the issue may be, whatever the mental health issue may be. It can be frustrating. And by no means am I trying to say that Felicia frustrates me all the time or anything like that. But it can be frustrating because you mentioned your father and how frustrating it was for him to see you in pain. And it's the same thing whenever she is in pain, or my children are in pain or were in pain. That pains me.
Right.
So
it's painful to watch.
It's really hard. It hurts, you know, because you don't want to see your loved ones to go through things, you know, and you start to realize, at least for me, I realize I'm not equipped to handle all of it. Certainly I can pray for you. Certainly I can pray with you. Okay. And I don't ever want anybody to walk away feeling that we're saying that prayer doesn't work. It does work. It does help. Okay. But don't be afraid to speak to them and say to them, listen, I'm with you. I love you. I want you to be healthy. I'm not equipped enough to help you. I think we need to go get you some help. I think we need to find you a therapist. I think we need to find you a counselor, or I think you need to find someone that can help you in this particular matter. I've also heard a lot, especially when it comes to like child suicide and, you know, teenage young adults being suicidal. Don't be afraid to use the word suicide or to ask them, are you having suicidal thoughts? Right. Because sometimes they really want to express how they feel, and they're afraid to say that that's what they're thinking.
It's like you cry for help.
It is a cry for help. So those are things I've learned. You know, just living and being around people who have struggled with different things, and knowing that I'm not equipped enough. I can certainly pray. Like I said, I can pray for you. I can pray with you. I can listen. I could be a listening ear. I can give you a little bit of insight, but in the end, I know I am not trained in certain ways. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I can only go but so far.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
don't always think that you can self-diagnose or diagnose others because you live life long enough. It
Yep.
takes more than that.
And that support can make a world of a difference for someone too. Just knowing that somebody wants you to be okay can be, for you never know how life-changing that can be for someone. And we would never ever negate the power of prayer because it's necessary. Like my shirt says, it's Jesus and therapy. It's both. Like when you're going and getting those tools and stuff, or even when you're just talking to someone and allowing them to help you to, unwrap all the things that are going on, even by doing that, you're finding out like what things to pray for, how to pray on target. If I'm talking to someone and realizing that I have triggers about certain things, or like for you, Miss Felicia, as far as the train, the train whistle, knowing that that's a trigger for you and being able to identify it, that then gives you the opportunity to be like, okay, this thing in particular, I need to spend some time, and when I am praying for this particular thing too. Yes, you are still dealing with it from the clinical side and doing the work that way too, but you gotta pull in everything that you can. If we want to be, I'm gonna use every resource that's available to me to live the best life that I can. Oftentimes we hear, or it's been said, in our culture, how we're just passing through here when we talk about life. But in the time that we are here, God wants us to live like a healthy, well life, a life of abundance. And it's not, we're not just here just to be here, just a pit stop on our way to glory. Yes, this is just a small fragment of time, but like while we're here, like live it the best way that God's intended for us.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And that's what he desires for us, is to be healthy, to be whole. I mean, that's all scripture. So when you're getting the therapy that you need, number one, I feel like you got to get rid of the stigma. So let's say somebody does come to you and says, I think you need to, we need to talk about getting you some professional help. Don't think, oh my gosh, they think I'm crazy, or they think I'm going to kill myself. Don't go off the deep end.
Right.
Look at it as the person being caring, compassionate, empathetic, and that they love you and they want to see you get well. Right. Just like if Mark was sick and he had a fever or something, and I would come to him and say, I think we need to call the doctor. I think we need to go to the hospital. Look at it that way. Get out of the stigma of, oh, well, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm crazy? No, it's not that. We need you to get the help that you need. That's what that is. So I think we need to break that stigma. And especially when we're talking about, I feel like we need to talk about our children.
Right.
Our children.
You're right. And conversely with that, for those who are, seeking therapy and such, or are seeking help, sometimes you get it from the other side when you're expressing to your loved ones that you feel like you may want to talk to someone, that there's something that you're not able to quite handle on your own. Taking away that stigma as well, like, oh, that person's just seeking attention, or they're just, they're just saying it because it's cool now. Like that's kind of what's in now, to talk about how I'm in therapy because, that's what, it's a hot topic these days. Like people, of course, there are always going to be outliers. There will be people who are just seeking attention. That's life. There are going to be people in any situation you could think of, but I wouldn't automatically assume that, because what if that's not the case? Right. And also, for some people, even if it does start out that way, seeking some help in or seeking some wise counsel may help them to live a better life themselves, even if it's not something that's dire that's going on. Just able to express yourself freely to someone who is legally bound to be unbiased and confidential, that can be really helpful to someone, even if you just want to, monthly or, every now and then just check in just for a little wellness check. Those types of, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And those are things that will help us to live that abundant life we're talking about. God, the physicians are biblical and we only have the physical side of that, but we're built of, mind, body, our mind, soul, and spirit, all those different things. Right. And we can't negate any particular part of who we are, because in order for us to be whole, we have to address the whole person.
Correct. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. It's not just, the prayer life is the spiritual aspect, but like you said, there's still the mind, body, soul that has to be attended to, and we don't want to neglect any one of those areas in our life to be a whole person. Um, I did want to go on a little bit about, or ask you your position or your thoughts about our children. You're an educator. We're coming through the pandemic. Hopefully it's going to transition truly into an endemic. Um, but has there been anything that you have noticed, or anything that has been uncovered over these past 2 years? And I'm looking for a better word, maybe emerged or more apparent things that have come out over the past 2 years when it comes to mental health with our children.
So, as I was saying previously, professionally, I was working with adults. I was doing something different, where I was dealing with elderly and disabled individuals daily. And so I had a glimpse of grown-up problems about what things people were going through. And I assumed, because I spent a lot of time volunteering, whether it's with our battalion program through Alpha or different things of the church, that I really was able to relate to or understand what our children are going through. But I can say that since I started teaching in September, my eyes have been opened so much, because even just realizing that children are just little adults. They feel the same emotions that we feel, just varying extents or varying circumstances. Um, but the same loss that we feel, the pain that we feel, the shame that we feel, the excitement that we feel, all those things, we act like kids are not capable of sharing the same emotions that we share, just in their own way. And I have never seen so much um, unaddressed pain from children.
Mm.
I started being with them in the classroom for 8 hours a day. And a lot of it does stem from, environment and parents and stuff like that. And some of them have their own difficulties where they may need medication and such too. But this time of the pandemic has really, really exponentially increased the opportunity for them to feel the negative emotions, I'll say.
Mm.
If you are, when we were on lockdown, for example, for an adult that's unhealthy and is home and is dealing with their own frustrations and may just be venting or just going through whatever and not seeking out counseling or what have you for themselves, you don't really think about the child who is seeing that and dealing with their own things, but then feeling like, well, I shouldn't really say too much to mommy about that because she's clearly upset about something herself. And a lot of my kids
Mm.
talk about that kind of stuff, where
Right.
they feel like they can't share some of the things that they're really going through or dealing with because they don't want to be more of a burden onto the adults in their life. I work with 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and I have
God
never
bless you.
talked so much about suicide.
Oh,
I
wow.
the children about it more than I've talked to the adults that I mentor and work with regarding it. Because with this informational age and such, they have access to so much and they're aware of a lot of things. And we kind of take for granted that when I was 10, I know that I had
Nothing like it. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that I was, I knew as much as they know. I
Yeah.
don't think that I was as exposed to the
Yeah.
world they are. And I'm not saying that necessarily as a completely bad thing. Yes, the world is changing and they're just more resources available. There's more information available for them. And some of those things are good, but some things aren't. And just knowing what is out there kind of gives them more options in their mind. For me, I wasn't really thinking about suicide as a child because suicide wasn't something that like I saw. And if
Right.
I did hear
Right.
about it, it was like,
Right.
no, you don't, completely taboo. But they're seeing, shows that, I know there was a show, I believe it was 13 Reasons Why. And there was a petition where a lot of parents were feeling like it glorifies suicide because of the way that it told the story of an individual who did complete a suicidal act. I didn't finish the show myself because for me that was triggering. And I have learned one thing I have learned is to if possible, avoid my triggers. And if I can't, I know how to adjust myself so not to affect me as much. But these kids, they see it all, and you can't really avoid it. When I have family members right now who are in middle school who are dealing with the passing of a classmate who took their own life.
Wow.
And I have other family members who have had, their own type of attempts and stuff. Like I have students who are dealing with family members and friends who have made attempts or completed suicidal acts and such, and they're 10 years old. And so while they may not be thinking about it for themselves, some of them have discussed with me like how it's an option,
Yeah.
And since we don't talk about it and we assume that they don't know about it, they're developing their own ideas about things and not really getting that balance. They're not getting Jesus and therapy from a lot of places.
So that's, I don't know.
I see your mind going, dear.
It's disheartening to hear that, certainly.
It is.
But
I was going to say something.
Go ahead while I gather my thoughts.
Okay. I was going to say, while he's gathering his thoughts, I don't know if you realize how God has placed you in that place, in that school, dealing with fifth graders. I don't know if you realize how important that is, because one of the things that bothers me about children and their mental health, when a child is, let's say, acting out, then it's like, oh, they're just bad and we just need to discipline the child. We need to look more into why the child is acting out. Yes, sometimes they're just bad and they have no home training, but that's not always the case. And I can remember last year with our grandson that there was a time that he was in school and he was acting out, and the teacher recognized and came to his mom and said, I just want you to know this is not like your son. He's acting out. It's been about a week. He's been acting out. And I just wanted to say something to you because I don't know what was going on. And his mom was able to say, oh, well, it's because his father passed and we're coming up on that time of year. And then they were able to handle it.
Right.
But if that teacher had not recognized and had not taken the time out to reach out to mom and say, hey, something's going on, it could have just been a whole different thing. So I wanted to encourage you because I can clearly see how God is using you for those children. If you haven't heard it, at least today, let me encourage you. You are in a place where God has you and is using you. And I'm thankful for you. And I don't even have a child in your class. So I just wanted to encourage you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to God for this opportunity to be in education because it's never what I thought I would be doing. I thought that by now my nonprofit would be up and running, making me passive income, and that I would just be running it and I would have all the people with the degrees to do all the stuff for me. But now at 33, seeing how I was frustrated for so long that my timeline wasn't going the way I wanted it to, or different degree programs or different things that I was working on never really lined up and didn't work out well because this is the time that God has for me to be in this particular space. And people often talk about how hard teaching is and how your first year is going to be the hardest one you have. And for me, I actually was just saying to my sister yesterday, who she's been teaching for about 7 years now, that like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because I get so much joy every day from dealing with a myriad of issues, highs and lows. Like I'm wondering, when am I gonna feel this pressure that everybody's talking about? And it's been a crazy year. I have countless stories. I couldn't even tell you about some of the things that have happened to me or that I've observed this year have really blown my mind. But the things that really stick out to me are things like the example that you gave where, of course, not to name any names or anything, but I had a student who this year, as a fifth grader, when I got there, I got the rundown about this kid, about how bad he was and how no teacher could get through to him. And we're just trying to get him through this year, make sure that he has everything he needs so he can go to middle school and he's gonna be all right. But you're not going to be able to really, really get through to this kid. And all he needed was somebody who would listen to his side. Even when he's wrong, he's one of those kids who he feels like he has to say his piece. And he went from failing everything the first quarter to now in the fourth quarter, he is like my top student for math and is like one of my biggest helpers and helps out the other kids in class. And yes, for him, it wasn't necessarily, I was able to talk to his mom and say, I think this may be a little bit more than just, acting out. You may want to, see if you can talk to someone and see what's going on and such. And while that helped, what really helped him a lot, not just because I'm a Black man in education, which is also mind-blowing to some of these kids who've never seen a male teacher, let alone a Black male teacher, or a Black male teacher that has hair and earrings, so they think I'm cool. Those things kind of helped him to at least hear me out while I'm trying to hear him out, and has really just changed, at least for this year, how this guy acts, how he responds to people, so where he just thinks about, is there a better way I could have solved that? Because for me, whenever he's acting out, wherever he is in the school, everyone knows, just send him, they can send him to my classroom and I can at least get him to, calm down a bit. But when I do that, the first thing I ask him, I'll ask him what happened. And I'm saying, okay, well, what could you have done differently here? And something as simple as that, puts the ball in his court where he can think through it and you can see the gears turning in his mind. And he's, able to accept more accountability. He's able to rationalize better. He's able to handle his responses and his emotions in a different way. And like I said, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just someone who wants to share what I've learned with someone else. And being able to do that for these children has just really let me know that God will really prepare you when you don't even realize that he's doing it. Some of the things that I've experienced myself have allowed me to kind of empathize more with a lot of people, specifically with these younger people, and kind of let them know that it's okay. It's okay to feel the feelings. That's a big thing that we kind of forget. Like you were saying, a lot of people say, that kid's just bad, or that adult is just they're just lost. They're just going through something. But God gave us this range of emotions. It's not for us not to feel them. Mm-hmm. It's important for us to be able to express them in a healthy way, or to deal with them healthily. And I think that's one of the main things that if a lot of us got a better grasp on knowing how to feel the feelings but handle them appropriately, mm-hmm. then it would change a lot of our lives, a lot of our worlds.
Yeah, I think sometimes we put too much responsibility on the children because you mentioned and you shared that your father passed, and I know that was hard for you. But if that was hard for you at I'm not sure what age you were when he passed.
27, something like that.
20, yeah. If that was hard for you in your 20s, imagine how it is for a child. And no matter what the situation is, a child is a child. So don't put the same responsibility that you would an adult as far as how they are acting out or how they're handling their feelings. They are, it's a child. Don't put that expectation on them. Of course, they're going to act out. Of course, they're going to do different things because they don't know why they're feeling the way they're feeling. So I think sometimes we as adults, we put too much responsibility on the children, but that's another reason why it's important that you are in that position and you can share with the child, but then you can also go back to the parents and say, I think this is what we're dealing with. So that's not it. Just because you're not a mental health professional doesn't mean that you're not used by God any less.
Right.
So that's an awesome place to be.
My grandfather says often that, we all have a ministry. We have our own personal ministry. And wherever you are, whatever your sphere of influence is, you are affecting the environment around you. You can affect it for good, you can affect it for bad. And using your experiences to help someone else to live a better life, I feel like that really, it's kind of like for me, it throws that battery in my back, makes me feel like I'm doing, even if I'm going through it, but if I'm able to help somebody else where they don't have to go through the same stuff that I did, I feel like I'm something right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to go back, and I appreciate what you all said because it just kind of helped me clarify a little bit what I was thinking, and I want to go back to the parent-child relationship for a few
Okay.
minutes, because I agree. Sometimes we do put too much on the child, and one of the questions I was going to ask you was, do you think there's really a neglect of the parents in them understanding their children and building a better relationship with their children? Okay, so that's kind of one of my questions, but at the same time, the word discipline came up, and the past few months, I've had this feeling. I'm older than both of y'all. Um, my feeling has been that we as parents have overcompensated for the things we felt that our parents did, and we allow too much to happen,
Mm-hmm.
where there may not be enough discipline.
Right.
Okay. And by no means am I saying that children shouldn't have feelings.
Right. Right.
Children
Right.
shouldn't have a voice. I think they should have a voice. I think they should be able to express. But sometimes I wonder, especially when I look at the things that are happening in this world and the generation. Sometimes I think that younger generations are too soft, if you will. Um, and at the same time, I feel like they are undisciplined because we, and you all are younger than I am, not that I'm ancient or anything,
You are.
but I wonder, is there a lack of discipline? Um, and again, I want children to have a voice. I want them to be able to express themselves. But do we
Right.
overcompensate? Do you feel like, in your opinion, do you think that we overcompensate?
I think that balance is important in every area of life, and that includes your relationship with or disciplining children. Because while I do feel that we need to seek to understand them more to be able to relate to them differently, there are also consequences for every action. And I think that that is one of the things where the lines are starting to get blurred, even from what I observe from my own students and parents and such, is that sometimes we feel like if I have a reason for why I acted the way I did, or if I have a reason for why I responded that way or did that particular thing, that should negate the consequences. And that's not the case at all. I think that when discipline is being used to correct or to show the consequences and such to help to change the behavior, that's different than like disciplining out of anger or disciplining just because that's what we're going to do. Like,
Right.
like, what's the purpose behind it? Are we just doing that because that's the way that it, like you said, how some people are like overcompensating for because that's how it was when they were younger, where if mom or dad were mad or you did something wrong, no matter what the reason was, you go grab a switch or what have you. I think there's a time and a place for that. I think that as parents, and me not being a parent myself, so I can only say that from my limited viewpoint, that it's on the parents as the adult to be able to accurately identify when it's the time for discipline and when it's the time to like you said, like hear them out, let them hear a voice. And sometimes it's time for both. Like something as simple as if you're acting out in class and I have to take away your recess or what have you, and you're upset about it, we can talk about it, later on, but you're still gonna be sitting on the side to pay back this recess. Like you're still gonna have to deal with the consequences for the choice that you made. But in addition to those consequences, okay, let's have a conversation about, why you did that or what you can do differently for the future so you don't find yourself in this situation again. But you still lost your recess,
Right.
or we talk, don't touch the fire. You don't have to touch the fire to know it's hot. If you touch the fire and your hand is burnt, like, yeah, the consequences that your hand is burnt. But after the fact, you can think a little bit about, okay, my hand is burnt because the fire is hot. I touched a hot fire. I shouldn't touch hot things or I'm going to get burned again. I'm still dealing with the consequences, but going through the other parts of it too then addresses the whole issue. And it's not just because I said don't. Sometimes some kids really just need to understand the why a bit more. And I do think that that's one thing that has changed a lot over the past couple generations is like the kids nowadays expect to be told why. And when I was a child, I wasn't expected to ask why. It was
it wasn't even a question.
So.
It wasn't
Right.
even a question.
Right.
And I mean, my generation, and my mom's on. I know she's watching, so I'm scared I might.
Well, I
Still
didn't
get
say hi,
a,
Mom. Hi, Mom.
I still might get a spanking for saying it, but my generation, it was, children are to be heard, or children are to be seen, not heard.
Mhm.
And yeah, you just do what you're told to do, and it was very little room of why. Why do I have to do it? Okay,
And
where now it's like it's flipped completely. It seems to me.
right, because my generation, I will say that for many of my peers, we were raised with, do as I say, not as I do, or children are to be seen and not heard, or do it because I said it. A lot of my generation then took that, and when we were able to do what we wanted, then immediately rebelled because you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not my mother. It's like, that's the only person who can tell me what to do.
You're not my mother. You're not my father.
And so I do think that balance is important to, to be inquisitive and to understand why and stuff. My mom actually tells me that she's told me this story about how there was an individual who, when she was younger, had like fake plants, and they wanted her to like wash the plants in the tub, like to clean them. And she felt like that was the dumbest thing in the world. And so she would get in trouble for saying that. But later on in life, when she went back to it and was like, we could have done that a different way. We could have, taken a wet rag or something if you really want to wipe the dust off the plants. I think the approach to it made it different for her. But she was told, you don't ask questions. This is what I told you to do, so do it. Not your parents. Another adult, was telling her to do things and expecting her to just do them, and it never sat well with her. And so as she and my dad raised my sister and I, they always encouraged us to ask questions, but to do it in a respectful way.
Manner. That's what
at the right time.
That's what I was going to say. And Mark and I, we did that with our children. We encouraged them. Okay, use your word when they were little. Use your words. Use your voice. But at the same time, when you're telling me how you feel, you need to be respectful. I'm still your mom. I'm still your mom. And there's a way that you don't express your feelings by walking around the house and throwing your toys or kicking whatever. That's not it. So you need to use your words and use your voice. And I know I really see it with Savannah, where she got that, wherein sometimes if she's upset, she'll use her words, or she will tell me, Mommy, I'm really upset. Can you just give me a minute? I need to be quiet so I can get myself together. And then she'll come back and use her words, because she knows she can't just talk to me any kind of way. I'm still mom. She does the same thing with Mark. He's still dad. We want you to use your words, but if you need to remove yourself, then that's fine. And you use your words and ask. But I'm not going to lie. There's some times when I told that child because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's some times that I said, just do it because I said so.
Yeah.
Everybody's mother come out sooner or later.
Yeah.
Go through it too. No parent is perfect, just like no child is perfect. But just the parenting style that you're referring to, and I'm referring to it with my own parents. Like, you can sometimes see with the adults these days who got that conversation and who got the just do it or rebel against it. You were talking a lot earlier about the violence in our communities and stuff right now, and I feel like a lot of that stems from people not being able to handle their emotions or express their emotions in a healthy way. So like how you said, Savannah will take a minute to gather herself before she addresses the issue, so she doesn't make it worse. A lot of times we are so quick to react and not really to think, and it's been so ingrained in many of us as adults, so we feel like that's the appropriate response, or like we should just pop off whenever, because that's the way we do things. That's how we've always done it. And while we were chastised for it as children by our parents, now I'm an adult, and you can't beat me because you're not my mom. So if you can't talk to me crazy.
They ain't go up in my neighborhood. Not in my day.
You're never
So
too
as
old.
to be, I kind of want to finish with this thought. And Chavela says children need to be taught coping skills, and I agree with that. They need to learn how to
Yes.
cope, just like we need to learn how to cope with them. You know what I mean? We have to learn how to cope as parents. We need to learn to be good parents to be effective for them, so that they would learn how to cope. You know, and like I said before, I don't see anything wrong with them asking. I don't see anything wrong with having a conversation. But like you said, there still needs to be some consequences. Now, every episode, pretty much, I look at the Word of God, and I look to see what the Word of God says. Now, I'm gonna show y'all some scriptures. Some of them y'all know, y'all are very familiar with. Some of them maybe not. But um, uh, well, here we go. All right, one that we probably hear all the time, and I'm just using Proverbs. There's other scriptures out there. I'm just using Proverbs, the book of wisdom. Okay, and it says this: train up a child in the way he should go, or she should go, and when they are old, he will not depart from it. And I believe that to be true. You know, just from my own life. You know, I was trained a certain way. Yeah, when I got older, big and bad enough to get away from some of that stuff I was taught, I did absolutely. A lot of people do that. But I found myself coming back to what I knew what was right, what I was taught. Okay. So I believe that to be true. If you train them, you know, if you and it goes back to my thought about the relationship and what are you teaching your children and things like that. If you don't teach them how to behave, they're not going to behave.
If you
Okay.
don't teach them how
If,
to cope, they don't
if you don't
cope.
teach them how to cope, they won't know how to cope. If you don't teach them what consequences are, they'll never think that there are consequences.
Correct.
So we have to train them up. You know what I mean? And then I was looking at Proverbs 22:15. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him. Now, right away, some people are like, I don't want to beat my children. I don't think you should beat your children and all that. Before I go any further, I do not believe that every infraction a child does needs to be a beating or a spanking. Okay. At the same time, I don't think timeouts is going to handle everything either. Okay. Sometimes there needs to be a rod. And I ain't talking about getting no lead pipe. I'm not talking about abuse. Okay.
Right.
But sometimes there needs to be something a little extra, in my opinion. And y'all can disagree, agree, add on to my thoughts. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. I'll start with this one and move back to the other one. I agree completely. Like everything isn't necessarily, you know, something that should be responded to with, you know, physical discipline. And everything isn't necessarily gonna be able to be handled by a timeout. But I think that it's important to realize, just like how every adult is different, every child is different too. And for some kids, you know, a beating is more effective, and for some, a timeout is more effective. But that goes back to the relationship you were talking about, building with your child to be able to identify what works best. Because I can say that for me, beatings worked because I didn't want to get another beating, and so I would just not do it so that I would stay out of trouble. But then as I got older, it would make me feel like, okay, then just don't get caught. And don't do it, just don't get caught. Whereas for some others, you know, just that the disappointment from your parents, or the whatever, you know, or you know, a stern talking to, a timeout, that made for a child that is more say maybe emotionally driven or something like that, that may be more effective for them to get them to change their behavior, see how something could be done differently. But it really needs to be, any type of discipline should be catered directly to the situation and to that child for what is most beneficial. To ultimately, the goal of it isn't to harm them, but to grow them, right? So like finding the best avenue for them to grow past this, to not make the same mistake again, or to be able to make a better decision in the future. And secondly, with the first scripture that you gave about train up a child in the way he should go, we often equate that only to like spiritual beliefs. And when we say train up a child in the way he should go, we often talk about, as far as, you know, them departing from the word of God or departing from a relationship with Jesus. But that is applicable.
I think that's just life in general. I think everything.
Life in general.
Yeah.
We more, Pop also says that more is caught than taught. Yes, but some is taught too. And when constantly what you're feeding, what you feed is going to grow. And so if you're training up a child to be brash, or to be over, you know, reactive, or all those things that they're seeing you do, or the things that you exemplify, that's another example of training them up in the way they're going, and they're not going to depart from that either. So I think that it's all of it is like it's case by case, but it's also like we have to pay attention to the whole person. Just like we're paying for ourselves, like we were talking earlier about dealing with our mind, our soul, our spirit. Like when you are a parent or a guardian, or if you have any type of children in your care, then you are then also given the responsibility of catering to that small person's mind, soul, and spirit as well, because they're not equipped yet or mature enough to be able to do it all on their own. So just like when I say that as adults, we should be doing our mental wellness checkups and stuff like that, just to make sure that we're being as healthy as we can. It doesn't just affect us; it affects our children, it affects our relationships, it affects our environments and everything. And we're training up. We're showing people, we're showing our kids, what we think is what the way that you live your life shows people what you value.
Absolutely.
It shows other people what your belief system is, whether you realize it or not. Like your life speaks a louder sermon than anything that you can say across a pulpit, or anything that you try to show people. What you do, people see more of what you do than what you hear. What you say, right?
Absolutely. So we're coming up on the end here, y'all. We got about maybe another 5 minutes. Uh-oh. I done messed up all over the place here. We have about another 5 minutes. If you want to ask a quick question that Lewis can answer for you, go ahead and type it into the comments. I'm sure he wouldn't mind answering. If you have a question that maybe you haven't hit on yet, I want to give you an opportunity for you to ask the question. I had a lot of other scriptures, but now I'm worried that if I start showing these scriptures, because it's all about discipline, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm saying you gotta go beat your children. Because
can I say something too?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're talking about all of this, and I just want someone to realize what we're doing is we're giving you resources, right? We're giving you tools. We're having a real conversation, but I don't want anyone to start beating themselves up if they've done some of these things and they're like, maybe I should have done that differently. Whether you're a parent who is caring for a child, and hopefully what I'm hoping is that this is enlightening you. It's helping shed some light on something that might be going on in your home, whether it's for a parent who has a child or if it's for yourself. So what I don't want this to do is to have anyone feel like they're beating themselves up because they're like, oh, well, maybe I didn't do that right or whatever. No, that's not what this is about. This is about us having a conversation, and from us sharing and you learning about our issues and how we handle things. And we didn't get it right all the time. I don't want it to seem like we were perfect, like Mark and I were perfect parents, or
I was perfect.
I don't want that to come across. We made mistakes and we will continue to make mistakes. So it's funny, I just posted this on my social media page the other day where it said you don't have to be perfect to be amazing. And that's what this is about. If you're not perfect, if there's something that you said, okay, I see that, let me do this, let me get therapy for myself or for my child, then that's what it's about. This is not supposed to be something where we are kind of like beating you up. Right. Yeah. I don't know what made me say that, but I really felt like
and you know what? And it's never too late for you to go back and apologize. It's never too late. When you realize this, and you know what? That gives you a lot of stock with them. They will respect that more than anything else. They'll respect that more than you taking to McDonald's as some type of, apology, or buy them a video game and all that, giving them their wants. If you go to them, and I'm speaking for myself, my mother once, she said, you know what? I gave you a beating. And I'm talking about many, many years later. She's like, I gave you a spanking because you came home with a bad report from school and stuff like that. But I realized it really wasn't you. It was the teacher that was the real issue. And I apologize for those times when I punished you when I should not have punished you, And to hear my mother say that she was wrong in something,
That's not something our parents' generation. I won't
From
say
that
our
generation to
parents'
hear that
generation.
generation say something like that was like, wow. You know what I mean? Even, anytime somebody comes to me and say, you know what, I was wrong in that, their stock goes up tremendously with me. And I'm an adult. For a child, it can mean the world. And that's another lesson learned, that even my mom, even my dad, even my older brother, my grandparent, whatever, they're not perfect. And they're willing to say I'm not perfect. Therefore, I don't have to be perfect. I can still make mistakes, but still be, as Felicia said, I can still be wonderful. I can still be magnificent. I can still be great, even though I make mistakes along the way. I just need to be able to be responsible for the mistakes I make and say, this is what I did. I'm holding myself accountable. Please forgive me. Because that's, until you do that, you can't even get to the point of please forgive me.
Yeah, and growth isn't linear. Like, just because, even if today you were to go to your child or to a person or whatever that you have wronged in some way to apologize, that doesn't mean that you're not going to mess up again either. Like, we're all, like, life is a constant journey. We're constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly making mistakes. And then the thing is, like, how you get up from it, how you move forward from that. And while we are in no way trying to shame anybody, we are trying to give the resources, because I can say for myself, if I had some of the resources that I have now as a child, if I had someone who was talking to me about, like, the clinical side of things, like as far as mental wellness is concerned, I would have avoided some pitfalls myself of trying to self-diagnose or trying to self-treat for different things. And that's really what one of my goals is, to give people the tools that I've been given earlier. That's why I'm grateful for, because I never even when I did decide that I was going to teach, I had no desire to teach elementary school, because I was not the babies. I don't. But I've fallen in love with it, because they're at this stage in life where they're like little sponges, and while they think they know everything, they obviously don't. But they pick up a lot more than we think they do. These kids are a lot smarter than we think they are. And they may not be able to express everything the same way that we can, but they're really absorbing the things they see, the things they hear constantly. And if I'm able to, every morning, I start off our day with affirmations. And in my classroom contract, with, like, our rules from the beginning of the year, one of those rules is, that we are to be kind to each other and to ourselves. Like, I don't allow negative self-talk in my classroom. And that's something that I've struggled with myself, is, like, when I don't do something right, I'm like, oh, you are so dumb. Like, how could,
Right,
and so
right.
Me too.
Since
That's
I'm
right. That's
working
low.
on it myself, over the course of the year, they watch me. And so they'll even say to me, like, Mr. Williams, like, be nice to my friend. Like, me being their friend, when I'm saying, oh my
Right,
God, I
right.
did that. And they're like, be nice to my friend. Because I tell them, like, oh, no, it's one test. We may not have done too great on this one. We're going to, figure out what we did wrong so we can do differently in the future. Be nice to my friend. Talk nice to yourself. Like,
Right. That's good. That's
things
good.
like that. Or just, speaking positively into their lives every day. And I have them saying things themselves too, just every day, telling them that they're valuable, that they're worth it, that they're smart, that they, that I'm capable of anything that I put my mind to. I know how to work when it's time to work and play when it's time to play. Those things, it annoyed them so much when we got started with it. But I noticed the change in some of their behaviors and the way that they address their own situations, because I'm constantly repeating to them, be nice to my friend, or give yourself another chance. Or a sermon that my uncle preached some years ago is, the plan is progress, not perfection. I tell them that a lot too, because we get so tripped up on our missteps sometimes that we stay in that place a lot longer than we need to stay there. And we don't focus on the healing. We don't focus on the growth. We focus on, beating ourselves up for what we did wrong. Okay, it was wrong. We messed up. But like you said, apologizing, taking accountability for your actions. And then the goal is to move forward, to grow, to live the most healthy and well life that we can. Because God wants us to do that. He desires for us to be healthy. He desires for us to be happy. He desires for us to be whole.
All right. So I did ask for a question, and we're beyond our time a little bit, but I'm gonna ask the questions just because I asked for one. And I want to say good evening to Lady Johnson. So happy that you joined us tonight, Lady Johnson.
Hey.
Hi, First Lady.
I'm my mom. That might be
Um, Dolly asked this, or makes this question or comment. So, considering that Adam was created as a full grown man and yet learned obedience as a child like Jesus, what about mental health and generational curses? Are they connected? Do you think that generational curses are connected?
Yes, we actually did a 2-part segment on generational curses on behavioral health, because it's so much that's enraptured in that topic. And one thing that I pulled away from it that I'll share right now is that a lot of things that we call generational curses sometimes can really be like generational trauma that's unaddressed. How do I say it? I would encourage you to, if you can, to go to the Mount Pleasant Facebook page and look at some of those videos to be able to get more in-depth details about it, specifically from people who are trained in that area to give you the right wording and stuff to help you to clearly understand it. But for me, one of the things I really took away from it was that we talked about the movie Encanto. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in that movie, like there was a person in the movie named Bruno that nobody talked about. There were a lot of things.
Talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. And not talking about Bruno, or not talking about the harder things, the issues that were going on in the family, it created this secrecy, this dishonesty, this distrust that they had for each other, that we would look at from the outside as a generational curse. Like that family, they don't communicate. They keep things to themselves. They're people that are harmed. They don't talk. There's this one guy in the family that just disappeared. But it was really a traumatic experience that the grandmother had that then extended to the rest of the family and affected the way that everybody lived their life because of trauma, because of because she did not have the opportunity or the resources to heal from that, to and to take it to what we're talking about today, to talk to someone in therapy or something like that, or to exercise some positive self-care tips to kind of help her to move past what caused her to be so broken, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when it comes to generational curses, it's important to really identify what's going on and see, is it something that's just a generational curse, if you will, or if it's something else that can be addressed by simply just paying a little more attention and by talking to the right people, getting the right resources in your life to help to heal in those different spaces, and see if that will not only affect you, but the people that are around you as well, and your family and future generations.
Thank you so much for that. It's all about conversation. When it really comes down to it, it's about having real conversations with the right people. And that's important as well, doing it with the right people. I just want to share again, I put it up earlier, but there is going to be another one of these sessions on Wednesday, May 25th at Mount Pleasant. We'll be putting on, and Lewis will be, are you the moderator, or you just take a part in the conversation?
I'll be the moderator for our session this Wednesday evening, May 25th at 7 p.m. Our topic is alcohol and wellness. And I do want to just say, going into it, that we are, just like on this particular video, we're not trying to shame anyone or anything like that. We're not doing that on there either. We want you to come with your questions. We want you to come with an open mind. And when we have our behavioral health sessions, we're trying to address things not just from the spiritual aspect, but also from the clinical aspect, to bring those things together, to make sure that we're giving a well-rounded approach to things. And I will say that we are not going into this session demonizing anyone for drinking alcohol. I just want to put that out there to begin with. We are not saying that there is something biblically wrong with drinking alcohol. We will address different areas of it and such, and how it can affect you, your mental wellness, like how to do things responsibly and appropriately and things. We're talking about it from that perspective. I don't want anyone to be turned off from the topic just because you see alcohol and wellness and see it's coming from a church. We are really trying to give the most well-rounded advice that we can give, from varying perspectives, from varying with people who are, like I said, licensed mental health professionals, some who are more heavily involved in the with church as far as the spiritual side of things, and for me, someone who has just been going through life and experiencing a lot of things and wanting to take everything I've learned and pass it down to somebody else so that somebody else may not make the missteps that I've made. Ultimately, I want to live a life that's worth imitating. And so in order to do that, I need to do the work for myself. And as I've been doing the work, I'm realizing that if I could have done some of this work earlier, then, my life may be a little bit different. So I want anyone who is listening to this, no matter where you are, no matter what stage of life you're in, it's never too late to turn a corner and do something different. Baby steps are still steps. They just may be a little smaller, but they're still in the right direction.
Right direction. Amen.
Amen.
All
I'm
right.
looking forward to that.
Me too. I haven't checked in on all of them, but the ones I do check in on, I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I come away with learning something new and having a better understanding. So this is one that I'll probably watch as well. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much, Minister Lewis Williams III. You gave us a lot to think about. Before we sign off, I do want to do a self plug real quick, y'all. The Mount Pleasant Bible Institute and Learning Center has invited me to do an introduction to evangelism class, so you'll be seeing different things referring to that as well. We are going to get into the biblical doctrines of evangelism and things like that. So when you're thinking about sharing this particular broadcast, and this has been a little bit longer than usual, but I've really enjoyed it, and I think Lewis was given a lot of great information and something for us all to think about. It's hard to cut a good conversation short. So I really do appreciate his time and him doing that. But if you're thinking about sharing that, and I do hope that you would share this with others, encourage others to watch it, and then encourage them to come on the 25th as well through Mount Pleasant's website. Please do so. That would be greatly appreciated. Do know that I love you. I know that my queen loves you. I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Let me close that. Okay. I assume Lou loves you. But as much as we can say we love you, God demonstrated how much he loves you by giving us his son. And his son demonstrated how much he loves us because he went to the cross just for you. If you don't know what all that's about, please, as always, reach out through the comments. Feel free. I didn't put the phone number up today, but do feel free to call the number, leave a message. If I don't pick up, just leave a message. You can always call 410-518-9499. That's the most important conversation to have in your life, is what did Jesus Christ do for you and why you need to accept his gift of eternal life. And I know I would love to do that as well. Is there any place that you would like for them to reach out to you at?
You can reach out to me here on Facebook or through the church, the Mount Pleasant Church and Ministries. You can call the church office, or you can contact me. I'll give you my church email address is lwilliams@mountpleasant.org. That's L as in Lewis, Williams @mountpleasant.org. You're going to spell out Mount. And if there's anything that I can do to connect you with the right people for whatever it is, even if it's not something that was discussed on this particular live regarding mental wellness and such, if you just have questions about how to get started, or whether or not you feel like therapy is for you, or if you just need somebody to pray with you, I'm available. Like I said, I want to live a life worth imitating, and that's for me. That involves me being available to share the wealth of knowledge that God has gifted me with, as I continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to make mistakes, to help someone else to live a well life. Again, my email address is lwilliams@mount.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm trying to be all quick and professional and mess it up anyway.
Are you teaching the virtual evangelism?
I am. I will be teaching it. And it's going to be every Tuesday at 7 to 9.
7 to 9. I know that Minister Moore was saying it's a shameless plug for himself, but this man is he's a prolific teacher, and I would suggest that you really tune in for that. During my own ministerial training and such at the church, as well as just what I've observed myself from seeing him in the pulpit and serving in different capacities. He really has a heart for the Lord and for people and for spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I implore you that if you are interested at all, if for any, even if you're just curious about, what's going on, I suggest that you register and that you log in, because it will I guarantee you that if you join into that Zoom call, that you will leave different than the way that you came.
Wow. See, now I gotta give him a cut. Man, I really appreciate you, man. You know I love you. I've loved watching you grow as a minister and all that you're doing, man. And I really appreciate you taking this time to spend and to share with others. I really do. Again, y'all, thank y'all again for all your support. I hope you come back next Monday, 7:00. Thank you, my queen, for this past month.
Pardon me. Next Monday's a holiday.
That's right. I'm sorry. We are not going to be here next Monday. Thank you for that. But we'll be here that first Monday in what's next month? June. Or I will be here because she does not want to be here with me any longer. But I do appreciate you giving me the time this past month. I really do. I really appreciate
thank you for having me. It hasn't been horrible. It really hasn't. But
okay, I'm glad you was able to bear up under it. I really do.
Thank you for having me as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank y'all so much. Again, stay cool because it's getting hot now. So dress appropriately. Stay cool. But again, thank y'all so much. I look forward to seeing you again first Monday in June. And know that God loves you. This is what it's all about. All right. Share with others. Talk to you again real soon.